Good afternoon for everybody joining us today. Going to go ahead and get started. We are going to have a little bit briefer webinar today, I believe, about probably 10 to 15 minutes of content to share with you, and then time for questions and answers as well. But just a heads up, we're going to be a little bit quicker, maybe get you back on with your day a little earlier. Again, I'm Josh Griffin from Ohio EPA. I'm going to go ahead and turn my camera on since we're going to be out in front of you guys. Folks haven't seen me for a while, or maybe haven't seen me before at this point, have a chance to see what I look like. So if you're out with us here on the 14th, you'll know who I am among the group when we're getting there. So I'm not going to leave it on the whole time just to help everybody preserve their bandwidth, but I wanted to turn it on quick. You guys could see what I look like again, and then we'll get going. So yeah, again, I'm the Lake Erie Program Manager, and I'll take the lead on the webinar today. We all have a busy summer underway, and we have a few less of our project team on the call today, but they're continuing to support the project. Our project team includes other Ohio EPA staff from ODA and the Ohio Department of Natural Resources. We have staff from the Ohio Lake Erie Commission, and their director of the Lake Erie Commission, Joy Mullenix, has also been active in helping us coordinate with our sister agencies, and she is with us today. And again, we have Tetra Tech helping coordinate the webinar logistics, and they'll be helping facilitate any questions and answers we have at the end of the presentation. If there's anyone new joining us today, and as a reminder, wanted to quickly go through the logistics for asking questions during the webinar. Note the audience members' microphones are muted. The raised hands function is also disabled. Participants should use the submit questions function if they want technical assistance or to ask questions or submit comments. You can see what those icons look like on your screen there. The questions function is the one with the question mark in the bubble. And there are a couple of handouts attached today. You can access those by clicking the page icon on your task pane. And we won't answer all questions asked today, but we'll keep records of them. Again, some of them may be incorporated into our frequently asked questions document that's on the web page. We're working on updating the FAQs and expect to publish a revised version soon. Other questions might not be addressed today because they might be a future part of the TMDL process, but with the PMR, we're starting to get far enough along that that's going to be less common. But we do have the report coming out tomorrow. So with that, we're going to focus on answering questions about what to expect in the report and how the comment process will work. Most technical questions we'll probably hold on to until we're out on July 14th after the draft report is published. We have 3 topics we'll address today. First, we'll provide an overview of the legal and technical requirements of the PMR. It's been a little while since we've talked about that. Then we'll go through the report organization, and we'll wrap up with a brief discussion about the next steps and what to expect from us. So starting out with the requirements for the PMR, Ohio law set up the framework for the TMDL process. In Ohio Revised Code, Chapter 6111, 562D, it states that the PMR must have the following components: the load allocation, waste load allocation, margin of safety, allowance for future growth, permit limits necessary to achieve the water quality target, and a preliminary implementation plan. These requirements are, again, reflected in our administrative rules in OAC 3745-212A2A. The requirements here on the slide mirror the requirements on the previous slide, but the requirements are in both places, but that's where they're at in our rules if you are interested. Our administrative rules also provide details about how the report is public noticed. The rule dictates who must be notified and the requirements for public input. So that's the kind of how and why the PMR has what it has in it from our rules and law. So how we've done that in the actual report, we've organized the preliminary results report into 6 sections. A section on the background, a section on phosphorus in the Maumee watershed, a section for the analysis methods, a section for the results, a section for the preliminary implementation plan, and a final section discussing reasonable assurances. In the next few slides, we'll talk about what's in each of those sections. There are also a handful of appendices that'll be attached to the report as well, providing some additional information. So the background section is fairly brief in the preliminary modeling results. It contains a summary of the impairments, summary of the watershed area, and links to several other documents that expand on this information. We all have written about or read about the Maumee watershed in a lot of different places, so we didn't want to rehash all of that in the report when there's so many good descriptions of the watershed elsewhere. The section titled Phosphorus in the Maumee watershed has 3 components. It has a linkage analysis that explains the rationale for how the TMDL will address the listed impairments. Most of that content is summarized in the target discussion, is a summary of the target discussion in the loading analysis plan. There's a detailed source assessment. This section has the information from the March 1st webinar, as well as some additional information from references provided by stakeholders during our outreach efforts. And we conclude this section with a discussion about critical source areas and the heterogeneity of sources in the Maumee watershed. So here we're provide a review of published critical source area assessments, and also an Ohio EPA analysis of the load monitoring data in the watershed. So that's looking at all the gauging stations we have in the watershed, which have a pretty substantial network of in the Maumee. In the method section of the report, we're explaining how we're doing the TMDL calculations, and the discussion's broken into several points, many of these specifically addressing requirements of the preliminary modeling results report. We have a review of the targets. We discuss the sources of data, the methods to assess existing loads, the modeling and methods for modeling the target condition, methods for model verification, the margin of safety, and allowance for future growth, and we wrap up the section with a discussion on critical conditions and seasonality. The results section presents the outcome of those TMDL calculations described in the previous section. We have the overall TMDL allocations, an evaluation of those allocations at the Waterville monitoring point, and the results of the model verification effort. The implementation section of the report follows the framework of the 6.1 webinar for implementation and adaptive management and breaks the discussion into the following sections. Developing the strategy is the initial plan, developed as part of the TMDL process, and considers where and how implementation activities are targeted. Establishing milestones ensures progress is made to meeting the TMDL. Implementing the strategy includes details about specific actions proposed to meet the TMDL waste load and load allocations. Monitoring environmental outcomes proposes a monitoring strategy that relates implementation measures to those environmental outcomes. And evaluating progress looks for specific metrics that will allow the monitoring data to be evaluated objectively for progress. And the section concludes with adjusting the strategy, which explains how the implementation strategy can be adjusted as new information becomes available. The implementation plan will continue to be developed for the final draft TMDL. Feedback on the PMR will help us build this framework into the final plan, which will be the draft TMDL that we put out. We're targeting the end of December for that document. Reasonable assurances are a Clean Water Act requirement for TMDLs. We've included some information in the PMR to start the conversation on reasonable assurances, including a definition of what reasonable assurances are and the framework being considered for demonstrating reasonable assurances in this TMDL. We're going to continue working with US EPA to make sure we fulfill our Clean Water Act obligations for demonstrating reasonable assurances. Again, as part of the handouts, we included the project schedule. It hasn't been updated recently, but we included it just for anyone who might be new and to highlight some of our upcoming events. Here we have some details on the next couple of steps from that schedule. We have the PMR coming out soon. We're taking the final steps right now to get that report ready to go, and we anticipate getting it posted on the website tomorrow. When it's posted, notice will be sent via our listserv for the project. If you aren't signed up, the link is on the slide, and I'll see if we can get it posted in the chat today as well, so it's easier to copy and paste if you need to. So I guess that could, Corey or Melinda, could you grab that link and try to post it in the chat, please? The PMR will have a 30-day comment period. It will direct you to submit comments to our EPA TMDL at epa.ohio.gov address. And there will be some additional details in the public notice to go along with that. We are set for the in-person meeting. It does have an online option on July 14th at Bowling Green State University. The registration link will be sent with the draft PMR, and we'll send a reminder email, probably early next week. And here on the 14th, we plan to present details from each section of the report. Once you have the report in hand and everybody's had a chance to start looking at it, at least have that opportunity, then on the 14th we'll share some of those details and make sure we have plenty of time for questions and answers on the 14th to talk about the technical content and answer questions. And I assured you that today would be brief, and I think I came in at about 14 minutes. So it's kind of what I was expecting today. We didn't have a lot of content. We're getting ready to drop that report in your guys' laps, and I would encourage you all to try to take a look at it before you get out with us here on the 14th, for those of you who can make it. We do have time for questions if there are any.
All right, thanks, Josh. This is Barry Conning from Tetra Tech. As Josh said, we do have plenty of time for questions today. And Josh, you might just back up to that second to the last slide with the next steps. I don't know if people were trying to copy any of that information down, but you've got the email address for the comments on the PMR, which again will be coming out tomorrow. You can see the link there where it will be posted, and then information there on the July 14th in-person meeting with the online option. The in-person meeting will be at Bowling Green State University. So we'll give people just a few seconds here to develop their questions and type them into the question box. As Josh noted, we do appreciate any and all questions. We may not address all those questions today. We certainly want to capture everything so that we can provide additional details in the frequently asked questions document, which is being updated, and also for addressing at future meetings. So we'll see if there are any questions coming in. I think we're getting a question or two in now. A question about the time for the July 14th meeting, Josh. What time will that meeting start, the in-person meeting and the online version?
Yeah, the time, I think we have 4 to 6 p.m. set aside for that meeting.
Okay. All right. Again, if you do have questions, type them into the question box on your platform screen there. And we are getting some more questions in. Here's one for you, Josh. Will the online participants be able to ask questions at the July 14th meeting?
We didn't do it last time, but I do think, and we haven't hammered out the final logistics, but I hope we can. We will be using the same go-to platform, so I do think we should be able to make it work, but I don't want to make any guarantees. We can maybe set it up so that they're enabled, but we will give preference to folks that are able to be there in person. But if you have questions afterwards, we can follow up and make sure that we're able to get them answered. And we could set something else up where we can kind of talk directly in a separate meeting.
All right, very good. A few overlap questions that are similar to the ones we've addressed so far. Kind of slowed down a bit here, a little bit shorter webinar today. You got to walk through the contents for the PMR. And what's up next? We're about to head into a very busy time for this TMDL, with the PMR coming out tomorrow and the in-person meeting July 14th.
All right, I hope we're able to, we got one more question that came in. I think we can answer it. I was going to start wrapping things up here. We'll do so slowly, so if there's a few questions that trickle in, we can answer them. But we got a question about how long the document's expected to be. I believe just as a raw page count, it's around 130 pages right now. Of course, that includes, table of contents and all that stuff. But there's quite a bit of content to the document. So if that answers that question.
All right, Josh, I'm not seeing any new questions coming in.
All right. Well,
I think we're about done.
Yeah, I think so too. And, thanks for jumping on with us today. It was a briefer presentation, but we have a lot of, we'll have opportunities to talk about some of the more detailed questions and technical contents of the report on the 14th. So hold those questions for that date, please. And looking forward to getting out and talking to folks again. Thank you.